Hey, let's dive into this Miss Janelle Grant versus Vince McMahon. Before I read this case and give you the facts and the graphic details, I just want to point out that people have been saying a lot of things and making comments and stuff and not really reading what's going on. This is a very big issue with misinformation in the country and around the world today. Everyone takes other people's word for things, and everyone takes things for face value. And then when you find out what the real thing is going on, you're feeling worse. You don't know what to do with yourself. Whether it's learning about awful things in history, whether it's learning about awful things that your family has done, whether it's learning about something about yourself that you had no idea had happened, it's very jarring to know that the people you look up to or the people you find some type of motivational piece that they give you, you find out that they're really pieces of shit. And I think this is a very big issue with Vince McMahon and all the people that worked under Vince and all the people that Vince scratched their back and they scratched his. I do not really care for what the old guard of wrestlers have to say when it comes to Vince McMahon. But when I do hear it, I will address it. But if you take the time to listen to this podcast and listen to what is being said about Vince McMahon and put two and two together, if you watched wrestling and you enjoyed the Attitude Era as much as you all revere 2 years of some of the most highly sexualized, mind-numbing, cringe-worthy TV, because I also sat through it too, you will see that a lot of that stuff that was put on TV, Vince played out in the background. In his old ass age, yes, in this court document, a lot of this stuff happened in 2019 to about 2022, we'll say. Vince was about 73 years old. But please keep in mind, Vince is not no broke down in a wheelchair 73. Vince is a very strong ass 73-year-old man. Okay? John Laurinaitis is old and he used his power to get what he needed and his connections with Vince McMahon. And also the other people that are alluded in this case. So I'm going to read this case. Because this is what I do. This is my job. This is the social worker part of my job. And when things like this come up, I want to really dive into it with you all the proper way. I'll put a disclaimer on this video, and if it's 2 parts, it's 2 parts, because I don't like to have just like one drawn out video. But I think it's necessary that we understand what is being said and what the allegations are. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this document. This is the Janel versus World Wrestling Entertainment, Vincent K. McMahon, and John Laurinaitis. So I could just say Vince, her name is Janelle Grant. I'm going to just say Miss Janelle, and let's get into it. So the introduction essentially tells you some things about Janelle, and it tells you some things about Vince McMahon. The crux of the introduction is Janelle lived in the same high-rise apartment building with Vince McMahon. Janelle met Vince McMahon through word of mouth by a person that worked at the building who wanted to help her because she was unemployed. Her parents had passed away. They lost the house in bankruptcy, and she had no way of, she apparently couldn't figure out what her next move was. She was in profound grieving, and she was struggling, okay? The building's resident manager said, hey, I can help you. I know this dude. I'll pass along your stuff. The building manager went to Vincent McMahon. He said, yo, I know a chick. She need help. She going through a lot. Parents just passed away. Vince was like, hell yeah. You know how Vince talk. All right. Vince went ahead, got in touch with Miss Janelle, befriended her, giving her hopes of a new life with promise of yet to be determined role at WWE, showering her with attention and assurances along with gifts like a VIP experience at WrestleMania. But What seemed like a dream in the spring of 2019, Miss Janel said quickly became a nightmare. Vince dangled career-making, life-changing promises in front of Miss Janel Grant. He demonstrated an increasing lack of boundaries. During several meetings that were obstinable about a potential job at WWE, he greeted her in his underwear, touched her repeatedly, asked for hugs, and spent hours sharing intimate details about his personal life. McMahon warned Miss Grant to keep their closeness a secret, lest rumors lead to public trouble, and added that while he protects loyal people, he had world-class resources on speed dial with people who became a problem. Mr. McMahon, Vince, pushed Miss Janel Grant for a physical relationship in return for long-promised employment at WWE. She said she felt trapped in an impossible situation, submitting to McMahon's sexual demands or facing ruin. Ms. Grant feared she had everything to lose and faced negative consequences no matter what happened. After Ms. Janel succumbed to the pressure of physical relationships, Ms. Janel was slotted into an entry-level position as an administrator coordinator, a position Vince created for her in the WWE's legal department. Ms. Janel began work in that role on June 17, 2019. She remained in that role with the exception of a temporary relocation to XFL, Extreme Football League. That is what The Rock has now going on to buy, Dwayne Johnson, until McMahon verbally directed her to transfer to Talent Relations Department, reporting to defendant John Laurinaitis on March 9th, 2021. So she was almost in the legal department for almost a year before they moved her in 2021 up under John Laurinaitis. During a conversation the same day, Vince explained that her presence in the legal department was effectively delaying efforts to hire a new general counsel for the company, and that is his reasoning of why he moved her up under John Laurinaitis. Vince and Laurinaitis informed Ms. Janel that she would be promoted to Vice President of Operations in the Talent Relations Department, providing her with an organizational chart reflecting this decision. Okay? Shortly thereafter, they informed her that they needed her to begin at a lower level as director, but promised her promotion to Vice President after a 12-month period. Despite Ms. Grant's expressions of unhappiness and attempts to end the sexual relationship, and while she came to understand that Vince expected a physical relationship to continue as part of her employment, she had no idea how sordid it would become, nor how the psychological torture and physical violence would leave her feeling helpless, isolated, and trapped. In March of 2020, Vince began sharing sexually explicit photographs and videos of Miss Janel, including pornographic content he recorded with other men both inside and outside the company, including members of the television production tech team, executive producers, and world famous athlete and former UFC heavyweight champion with whom WWE was actively trying to sign a new contract, which he ultimately did sign that contract. Given Vince McMahon's omnipotent position in the WWE, coercion was inherent in his increasingly depraved sexual demands. Specifically, while McMahon was CEO of WWE and Ms. Grant was employed as an entry-level coordinator in the legal department, McMahon recruited individuals to have sexual relations with Miss Grant, Janel Grant, and or with the two of them. Ms. Janel visited Laurinaitis prior to the start of the weekdays for sexual encounters and expected and directed Miss Grant to engage in sexual activity at the WWE headquarters even during working hours. All this time, McMahon ordered Miss Grant to keep their relationship secret unless otherwise instructed, including lying to maintain whatever cover stories he fabricated. Vince assured that Miss Janel, was safe and independent, rang hollow in light of his efforts to isolate her from her friends and attempts to chip away at her identity until it was replaced with his desired role for her as his bitch, his fantasy, and or his porn star, while occasionally intermixing soft descriptors like girlfriend and baby, even love, when convenient. He exercised complete ownership and control over both her personal and professional lives. McMahon also subjected Miss Grant to acts of extreme cruelty and degradation that caused Miss Grant to disassociate and or become numb to reality in order to survive the horrific encounters. As an example of Vince's extreme depravity, on May 9th, 2020, he defecated on Miss Grant during a threesome and then commanded her to continue pleasuring his friend with feces in her hair and running down her back, while McMahon went to the bathroom to shower off. Upon his return from the bathroom, Vince and his friend actively resumed the threesome, which lasted over an hour and a half, while Miss Janel remained covered in McMahon's filth. When Vince's friend left, McMahon ordered her to stay and continually sexually gratifying him with his shit on her, okay? In June 2021, McMahon and defendant Laurinaitis sexually assaulted Miss Grant inside Laurinaitis' office in WWE headquarters while colleagues were busy at their desk. Behind a locked door, the two men cornered her and pulled her in between them, forcibly touched her before ultimately putting her on top of a table in between them. She begged them to stop, but they forced themselves on her, each taking turns restraining her for the other one, while saying, "No means yes," and "Take it, bitch." Unsurprisingly, others at WWE knew what was going on, but instead of intervening to protect Miss Janel, WWE actively sought to conceal the wrongdoing. In January 2022, Vince told Miss Janel that his wife had found out about their relationship, purportedly to avoid divorce, negative publicity, and other repercussions. Vince said that Miss Janel's time at WWE was at an end, but that he wanted her to sign an NDA to ensure her silence on, among other things, his personal misconduct. In the days ahead, Vince McMahon put Miss Grant under immense pressure to sign, saying that refusing would not only jeopardize Vince, his family, and the company, but that she'd surely become a public headline, suffer reputational ruin, including from the pornographic content that Vince had captured, and face Vince McMahon's legal resources. Conversely, McMahon reassured her that her signature would ensure his continued support and protection and safeguard her reputation. Ultimately, Ms. Grant succumbed to the pressure and signed the NDA in exchange for payments, which McMahon later stopped making. I'm going to stop right there. Part 2 is right behind this if you're interested. Remember, while listening to this, practice some self-care because it gets worse. I already read it once. I have no problem reading this again and continue reading this because I think the facts of the case need to be known before you make a judgment. All right, part 2 is right behind the corner. Right around the corner. Later.